You're a great example to me of what someone who is in business, like what they should be, what it should look like.
A students teach B students to work for C students. And so the A students are in the universities, but the C students are the ones who making all the money. Can we say money on Myles side?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man, of course.
I was putting accounting to work as a doctor who, when you see a business problem or situation in business that needs to get solved, you prescribe what needs to be prescribed to fix that problem. We don't have to solve that problem today. The problem that we have to solve is what are we not doing that is creating those problems in the first instance. Let's work on us first. There are two imposters in life, success and failure, because both are temporary. Success does come at a price. Growth comes at a price. Achievement comes with a price. The question is, are you just prepared to pay the price?
All right, welcome everyone to the new episode of the Miles High Podcast. This is Miles Jr. And as always, the goal and vision of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. So for today's podcast, I have a guest. We have a guest today, a very special guest to me. This is one of my mentors. This is someone that I have spent a lot of time with. I've had a lot of counseling sessions with, a lot of advice given from this person to me in my professional life, in my personal life, and all of the above. And I wanted to bring this person on because he has a wealth of knowledge that I feel can be very beneficial to the audience. I wanted you to gain perspective on insights that I have been able to gain over the years. So I want to introduce to you a mentor of mine, a great friend, a great confidant of mine, Mr. Ethan Moss. Mr. Moss, welcome to the pod. Let's clap Mr. Moss up.
Man, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me, Mr. Moss. So for starters, the title of the pod today is the Entrepreneur's Guide, and I have always looked at you as a savvy businessman. You're a great example to me of what someone who is in business, like what they should be, what it should look like, how it should come across as someone looking from the outside in. And I just wanted to pick your brain today on a little bit of your entrepreneurial mindset. But for starters, let's introduce the audience to you just a bit. So you're born and raised in the Bahamas, but give the audience a little bit about your personal background. Family orientation, education, all of that good stuff.
Chara, it's such a privilege to be here and to be on this particular podcast. I try to listen in as often as I can. And I must tell you, I'm very proud to see what you're doing with this show. And as you said in the intro, to cause the audience to go beyond the fright and the fear in their thinking. And I think that I can only testify to that if I may use a church expression, because that is true in my life. I'm married to Teresa, 2 boys, Ethan and Edward. They are the joy of my life. I come from a family of 6. I'm the eldest of 6 children. My dad was an insurance broker for many years. My mom worked in Super Value, the food store chain here in the Bahamas, or one of them here in the Bahamas. So a cashier and an insurance guy. And we just had a great family time. My introduction to entrepreneurship really, as I think about it, really began with my dad, to be honest with you, because he tried operating a food store, he and his brother together, and in what we would call a place of the ghetto today. I tell the story all the time. I was born in my grandmother's house in Bainstown, grew up in another area that's referred to as the ghetto in Chippenham, spent my formative years in Molly Street, the Grove, as we call it. And I learned what not to do from my dad
Okay.
because that business didn't fail. I mean, it failed. And I think it's simply because industrious people are always looking for ways to get ahead. And it was a thing to have a food store and a convenience store because they worked hard and they wanted to increase the income. There were 6 of us that they had to raise, and that was not that was typical of families in that day in terms of having big families, etc. And I saw some things that he just didn't get right as a businessman operating a food store, and I think that began my journey.
And at the time, did you know that he wasn't getting it right, or was it just information for you at the time?
Oh, no, I didn't know that. At the time, all I knew was I got a free ice cream sandwich.
And you worked along with him in the stores?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My first cash-in job, I learned to cash in the food store that my dad ran. And I learned about inventory, stocking shelves. And I also learned about what not to do as the son of the owner. You don't eat the inventory. So maybe it wasn't him that didn't get it right. Maybe it was me and his 6 children that didn't get it right.
So let's talk about education. Like how was high school for you, and then college, your college years, and how did you gain experience?
I must say that I'm a blessed man with the education that my parents worked very hard to afford us, all of their children. And so we went to private school. That to me is a part of the story that I will tell eventually, because to see them work the way they did to put their children through private school, because education was a premium at the time. And then my high school experience was something that only today I appreciated the way I appreciated while I was going through it. You know, all of the awkward years you go through and trying to fit in and trying to figure out who you are, and trying to be an A student when you're really a C+ student and not appreciating the value of being a C+ student. You know, but they were great formative years.
You say the value of being a C+ student.
You caught it. There's a value in being a C+ student. And I learned this, I think it is in a quote from Kiyosaki. Maybe it's not him who said it, but he quoted it. C students hire A students teach B students to work for C students. And so the A students are in the universities, and but the C students are the ones who are making all the money. Can we say money on Myles' side?
Yeah, man, of course. Oh, wow.
So there's a value in being a C student.
Yeah.
And I only appreciate it today because I understand how my mind works now. I understand my skill sets. So being a C student doesn't mean that you're not capable. All it means is you understand differently. So I couldn't pass an exam for nothing in the world.
So do you push your kids to be A students or C students?
Absolutely. No, we've always, Teresa and I have always said to them, you're trying to catch me today. We've always said to them to be the best students that you can be.
There you go.
Now, I can't lie. I look in the camera, I can't lie. It feels good when they bring an A grade home.
Absolutely.
And they celebrate it as well. But I much rather know you got that A because either you pushed yourself because of something you wanted to achieve. That particular subject that you get an A in, it identifies with your gifts, talents, and abilities. And so it just reflects the fact that this is helping you to figure out the direction that you want to carry your life in, or something of that sort. Not because you cheated or you were trying to do something that was untoward in order to get that A grade.
Okay. And then college?
Yeah, so went to university, did my degree in accounting.
Okay.
And so my background really is accounting. I got to university on a scholarship because I was a C student. That's quite a story in and of itself. Got to university, did accounting. The company that gave me the scholarship, I came back and I worked with them for 16 and a half years. And this was where I was putting accounting to work, but not as a coroner. I was putting accounting to work as a doctor who, when you see a business problem or a situation in business that needs to get solved, you prescribe what needs to be prescribed to fix that problem. You don't wait until the problem kills the business, then you try to figure out
How to fix it?
it died because of this.
Yeah. So your 16 years working, was that what you wanted to do? Like after you graduated college and you had this accounting degree, was your goal to find a job in that field?
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
So-
I my I ended up to the company that I work for because I did 2 years of college here, and at the College of the Bahamas then, it's University of the Bahamas now. After that 2 years, went to the guidance or the job placement officer, and she said, "Go to this company. They're looking for somebody to work in the accounts department."
Okay.
And that's how I ended up. I was just looking for work. Man, my dad had already made it clear, son, you're on your own now, because I need to make sure the rest of the kids have the ability. So I was looking for work after my first associate's degree.
Did your dad still have his food store at the time?
No, by this time we were done.
Okay.
There was somebody else operating it, and I worked in that. I worked in this food store with the other person as well.
Okay.
And he was well into insurance and doing the things that he was doing. And yeah, so I had to work on weekends to help pay for books and whatnot at COB. And then once I was done, I got this job placement opportunity. And it was a warehouse, food distribution and general merchandise distribution. I went to work in the accounts department. I started off in accounts receivable and checking reports from the various retail points. And so I got a great education in what actually happens in a store, in a retail store, from a sales perspective, from a cashier being able to balance, from the perspective of policies being adhered to, like you don't pay money at the cash drawer unless it's authorized. These little small things, I began to get exposed to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how I ended up there. And because of my, I'll just say my work ethic, which I learned from my dad, by the way. Once I got there, I got a scholarship, full-paid scholarship to go and finish my degree in accounting. And then I came back and I worked with that company.
So let's take a step back. So your goal, your degree in accounting, that's what you wanted to study in
Yeah,
college?
yeah. Accounting, actually, if you look in my school yearbook, and I won't tell you the year that is, but it has lawyer, and it should have said lawyer/accounting.
Okay.
Again, my exposure at that point in time was that when you get your education, there were a couple of things that you did. You did accounting, you did legal work, doctors, that sort of stuff, right? Now, nobody ever tells you, one, the journey to get to those things, and two, when I narrowed in on accounting, nobody tells you that there are still accountants who work for just above minimum wage, and then when you get to manager and senior, that's where you really begin to make money, right? You get this glamorized look or view of, oh, that person has accomplished this, they're an engineer, and you don't really get the true journey that it takes to get there. So accounting for me, that was the big deal. I was better with numbers than I was with English. So yeah, that's what I should do.
So once you graduated school, you got this job placement, and you've been here for 16 years, working in the accounting department or in the accounting field. Was there a point where you were like, man, this ain't what I thought it would have been? I think there's something more that I would like to do.
I think I enjoyed the accounting, but what I didn't realize was happening with me was I was developing something else.
Okay.
Because in that environment, I explain it this way. When you're in the classroom and in your accounting class and you're given the assignment to reconcile the bank account, and you have to do this for an exam, you have to do this for the professor, they give you the information. You just have to sort it and put it in a format that shows that you understand how to reconcile it. When you're in the real world, they don't give you the information.
You gotta find it.
You got to go and find the information. So what that meant for me, because I'm not the sharpest pencil in the pencil case, is that I spent more time than average to find the difference, to understand why the numbers were what they were. and most of all, to be able to explain it to my boss, the general manager. And that was the education for me, and I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the process of what generates the numbers. Why, when we went to do the inventory, we said we should have 1,000 boxes, but we only have 825. So you begin to develop investigative skills. You begin to develop observational skills. You begin to pick at human thinking. And that fascinated me. So while I started with accounting, I think I fell in love with the process of what it takes to make business work and how accounting helps you to be analytical in that regard.
So it's funny you said process just now, right? Because I'm a strong believer of, our life happens in three phases, right? It's positioning, preparation, and promotion, right? So you are positioned in whatever area of life, and then you go through this preparation phase that could last a year, that could last 2 years, that could last 16 years, and then you're promoted to a next position or a next level in life where you're positioned, and then you go through those three steps again, right? So in the 16 years that you spent on this job in the accounting field, was it after those 16 years that you realized, man, I want to get into my own business, or did you?
No, I think that. By the way, I hear the book. By the way, I love the way you put that. I think having the right influences in my life is also a part of the total package. So while I understood I had to work hard, while I understood that you're going to work hard, but make the most of the hard work that you're doing. See things differently. Don't just accept it, blah, blah, blah. I had people in my life who would say, man, we have to expand our income. We have to have an investment portfolio. We got to buy land. And these are the kind of friends that I had. Many of them are still a part of what I do to this very day. And then someplace in between that I became I thought I was man and took on a wife and girlfriend and this sort of stuff. And the realities of life began to hit you. Responsibilities you got to, and so at the time when I earnestly began to look for diversification, diversifying my portfolio. Mind you, the only portfolio I had was a couple of dollars in the savings account that Teresa would not let me touch. And it was a couple of dollars, right? Because, even then, I wasn't at the top of the earnings chart. When I left the company to go and operate my own business, I really began to excel there. And had some perks that are standard in today's environment. Back then, it wasn't. And so it was the quest to diversify my income. I began to read books on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all these books that have historically helped a lot of people to think differently about what money is, how finances work, how you get ahead. I made sure, as my friends were encouraging me in the places that I went, that I tried to do some things a little differently. And it's also because I was driven, by the way. It was also because I knew the experience of my family. And I describe the experience of my family as good people. And I don't mean just my dad and mom. I just mean that generation of people.
Sure.
Good people who work hard, who they actually built this country in the Bahamas, but could not see the return on what they were doing, except they postponed it to their children, and they postponed it to something in the future, not something that they could partake in. And I was driven for that not to be my life as well.
So what inspired you then to start your own business?
I started to look around.
Okay.
Still working, still working, not a 9 to 5, because for me that was a 7 to 8 job.
And this was the same accounting job that you were
Same account. By the way, I worked in the accounts department. I got to supervise it and manage it, but I spent a lot of time in all of the departments in the organization.
Okay.
So I think part of why the owners and the general manager trusted me to do that was I was passionate about learning what it takes to run business. So I learned to drive a forklift. in this company, and I was a part of the accounting team. I learned to make a delivery in a delivery vehicle, going to customers. But I was part of the accounts team, and I had to get both done. So that accounts for the amount of time that I had to spend to get it done.
So what's someone in accounts doing driving the forklift?
Well, again, if you don't know what drives the number that comes across your desk, if you don't know what caused the forklift to have to be repaired 3 and 4 times, if you don't understand that the truck is at the top of Hawkins Hill with 14 pallets of product on it that are about to fall off if you don't get mechanical help, you'll never understand when you see the bill to pay it. You'll never understand why that bill is what it is.
So that was just a something personal that you did, or like it wasn't an instruction that someone said, "Hey, go drive this forklift."
I just watched my bosses.
Sure.
That's what owners do. Owners don't have the flexibility to say, "Well, I'm going to sit in my chair and let somebody else go and run with it." It just doesn't happen that way.
You know, and the reason why I ask is was that just something that you personally innately did, or were you instructed to do that? Because I think that's how most entrepreneurs think, right? We always want to know what drives this aspect of the business. How do I work this, this machine? How does this process work? How can I flip this process around and maybe advance it, or make it better, or lessen the cost, or these we want to dissect different aspects of business. And I think that's important.
No, absolutely, and I was mentored into that first by my father. I will tell you, while the food store business didn't work out, I learned some very important principles from him in business just by watching him. And then I call them mentors in business. They were my employers at the time, watching them, and particularly one of them, the general manager, and how important it was to be concerned about the customers getting their product in time. So having the equipment to do it, having the people in place to do it, making sure that the orders were what we call picked in time, etc. And I just observed. They lived in front of me, and I observed, wow, that is really what it takes. And so when there was a deficiency, somebody didn't show up, well, what do you do?
You gotta fill in. Yep.
Well, I saw my boss jump on the forklift.
Yep.
You jump on the forklift and you learn to drive it.
Got you.
You might tap the truck every now and again, but you get the product off.
Yeah. Well, I heard you say, you got to the point where you elevated to general manager of
Assistant, yeah.
General manager of the department. So you're making a good amount of money, right? With some perks at the time, right? And were you married at that point? Still dating?
Yes. No, I was married at that time. Yeah.
So you're married at that point. And then you get this inkling to diversify your portfolio, right? So, how do you? Because I'm sure there was a safety net obviously at this job with salary and the perks that were there, and then now deciding or trying to make a decision to jump into your own business where you don't no longer have the safety net. How was that?
You asked the question, and I almost want to tell you I know where you're trying to go with this question. But I'll never forget the look in my wife's face on one of the occasions when I said to her, "Babes, I'm going to run a gas station." At the height of my career, right? And not only am I going to run it, I'm going to leave the job that I just invested 16 and a half years in, and they invested in me. I'm going to run a gas station. And the numbers look okay on paper. Oh my goodness, the first year.
Reality. Oh man.
The good thing is we had some things that were that allowed us to take that risk.
Okay.
All right. First of all, I didn't have a mortgage.
Okay.
Lived in an apartment.
So you encourage people to rent before they?
No, I'm not giving financial advice at all. What I'm saying is, my wife and I, the principle is we lived on one salary.
Gotcha.
Right? So living on one salary meant we had a goal. We wanted to get a home, etc. And I had I was beginning to develop my understanding on managing resources, financial management.
Sure.
I began to understand how money works. And if you're working for money, it's a sure formula that you will always work for money. You have to get to a point where money's
Money work
working
for you. Absolutely.
And we call it sacrifice, but I call it the upfront investment to get to that point means that you have to deny some of the things that you want to do for a short period of time in order to have the longer, the bigger picture that you're trying to achieve. Nobody can do that for you. I promise you, audience, that you have to do this for yourself. The pain that you go through, you have to manage the pain. So, for instance, Teresa and I, in those early days, we had family meetings around our financial resources. And the rule was we sit on each end of the table like we were having a conference, or I think it was a round table. But she couldn't put her hands on me while we were having this meeting. That was the rule, because we had to talk business. No. Can I say this to the audience? Yeah. So we had a business meeting.
Okay.
And you know, all we did was we set a precedent of what we wanted and how we wanted our finances to be managed, based on the understanding that we had. But it was a risk. It was it was a huge decision. It impacted my family. It impacted my resume, whatever you want to. But I knew that I was prepared. All that I experienced in the 16 and a half years at the company I was working for would come to play in the very first year in this business. And 25 years later, we're still here.
So we're talking about the first year of the business, right? Well, first of all, you said something, well, you didn't say this, but you indirectly said this. It's important who we choose to marry. It's important the person that we choose to spend the rest of our lives with, right? Because you need to find someone who you're equally yoked with and who has the same vision that you have. Because, I can imagine, some couples who, like, when they sit down and they try to make, financial decisions and money decisions, they may not agree on a whole lot of different things, and we're going to sacrifice for this, and this is what we're going to do now. We're going to delay this, to some other point in the future, and that causes a lot of friction in some marriages. But I think it's a blessing that your wife and yourself were able to, come to a compromise and build the life that you guys have been able to build to this point.
Yeah, the way I like to explain it is because talking about it now that we are where we are is different. It's easier than while you're going through it, right? And the first thing is you have to decide. Let's sit down and talk this through. And where we do differ, okay, each of us has the ability to add or to make a contribution to the discussion. And where we do differ, all right, how are we going to deal with that difference? Now, it's not as sophisticated as that.
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to make it sound as though it's a counseling session.
Sure.
It's a give and take conversation. It's perhaps when there are concerns about other things going on. And I think it's just a matter of being as honest as you can and as transparent as you can. Because I don't know that Teresa agreed. All I knew is that she was prepared to support me. And she demonstrated that in a number of ways. First of all, she allowed me to work 16 hours a day. And we did have very difficult times. There were pressurized questions because family get involved, and they want to know what's happening. Is my sister being taken care of? She's in this apartment, and we didn't have any children for the first 4.5 years of our marriage.
Okay.
Right, and so the pressure of those who love you and the pressure of the things that you want to achieve, they all come to bear when you make these very risky decisions.
Sure.
It's not easy, but I think that what allowed Teresa to trust me or to support me in taking this risk was, prior to this, we talked all the time. I spent a lot of time studying purpose, potential, leadership. I spent a lot of time talking with Teresa at lunchtime about these things, what I'd like to achieve, where we could go, how we could improve things, even at work. And so she knew me to be a talker of that nature. As a matter of fact, we kid around today, I tell her all the time, is my talking that swung her head in the first instance. Um, so it didn't happen because we were just these great people who were able to work this thing out. It happened because she was prepared to say, Ethan, if this is what the Lord is telling you to do, I'm going to support you. And she didn't say that out of her mouth. She demonstrated.
Absolutely, actions. No, that's good. That's good. Communication is key. I always say that, especially in any relationship, not just a marriage, but business relationships, friendships. Communication is key. You have to know how to communicate with your partner. All right, so you left this high paying perky job, the safety net.
Perky. It was a warehouse I was working at. Okay, just
So, I'm sure you were making good money at the time. You went off into your own business. So tell us some of the biggest challenges you faced early on in venturing into entrepreneurship.
Today, I'm able to have the perspective of history.
Sure.
And I think as any entrepreneur in business will tell you, that there are always going to be the big three, or maybe it's four. But anyhow, you're going to have the issues of what I call people issues.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have the issue of making sure that you have the right funding and access to the funding and the resources that you need, not just to start the business, but to make sure it continues as a going concern. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have the biggest challenge of all, yourself. Mm. The biggest challenge of any entrepreneur is themselves, and in my view. And why is that a challenge? The first thing is because an entrepreneur always has a vision of where they want to go. Mm. And that entrepreneur, that business owner, has a responsibility, whether you have one employee or a million, to cause those who will be a part of that journey you want to embark on to see what you see. Mm. Right? And then how do you take the resources that are always going to be limited and cause it to enable what it is that you're trying to do? Mm. So I would say in the beginning, for us, it was just understanding the industry, because the industry of petroleum retailing in the Bahamas, it's a controlled industry. It's regulated, highly regulated. For me, I'm a franchisee. So then you have the responsibilities of delivering on all of the stuff that you signed up that you say you will do. All of your team members would be properly uniformed with a name badge. And then two of them show up and there's no name badge. What do you do? Yep. That's a people's problem, right? I know some entrepreneurs, they don't give you the time of day. You're not here with your badge. See you when you could have your badge on. And so for us in the beginning, it was really the pressure of performing in an industry that we were getting to know, with the limited resources we had, both people and also financial resources.
And you didn't go into business by yourself. You had partners. How was that dynamic in getting everyone on the same page and to start the business and structure the business in a way where you guys felt it would be successful?
Yeah, casting the vision is always going to be the big deal. Mm-hmm. I am so grateful that the partners that we got into this together, they are men who understood that starting with nothing doesn't mean that you can't manage and grow what you do have into something. So the commitment was to something greater than Ethan as an individual. It was to that ultimate vision and ultimate objective. Number one, we all believe in people. We all believe in the human value and growing that human value, etc. We all believed in making sure that we made things like education and advancement in training and that sort of stuff. That was a priority in what we do. And we all agreed that when it comes to money, let's decide at the beginning what we can do with money, rather than wait till money either come or it don't come, and then try to figure out who run off with the money, you know? So we had the wisdom of God in the beginning to decide, here's what's going to happen if this doesn't work. Here's how you get out. And if I could offer a bit of advice to anybody who is thinking entrepreneurship or business, etc., the day you decide to take the leap and take on the risk, and especially where you're going to involve partners, decide how you're going to get out before you start. Because now everybody understands what power they have.
Yep.
And that takes away this need to try and figure out, is somebody getting an advantage over the other person, etc. And I got tons of that kind of stuff, but
No, I got you. I think that's great advice. Always got to consider an exit clause.
Yeah.
I think that's important for sure.
Yeah. You smiled with a bit of a smile, but we'll do that for later.
So you get into the business with your partners. You start the business. You talked about the people, the resources, and yourself, the internal challenges that you faced and overcame at the beginning. So when you hit that phase now where you're growing and you started to grow as a business, how did you manage that growth?
Still managing it.
Okay.
And since COVID, like so many other businesses and entrepreneurs, this has really been a period of time where you have to go inside before you try to do things outside, right? So the managing growth is very interesting. First of all, if you start off selling 100 cakes a week and your goal is to sell 10,000 a week, growth is going to expose not just your ability to sell the quantity or to grow the business the way you want to, but it's also going to expose the things that you don't do well. And this is where you have to get out of your own head as the person who is leading the charge. And we're dealing with this in our business right now, where you have a great footprint, you're achieving through a growth and expansion what you want to achieve, but your weaknesses are also showing up at that expanded footprint and format. And the question is, when your weaknesses show up as well as the progress you're making, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to say, well, I'm not going to deal with that stuff because we focus in on the bigger picture? I say that's a formula for your business to die from the inside. And so how do you deal with the weaknesses in your structure, in your business model, in what it is that you're actually seeking to achieve? You go back to the original vision for why you got started in the first place, and you solve your problems in your business at the visionary level. You don't solve them at the level of what caused the problems in the first place. So for us, customer service is key in our business, and I'll be the first to publicly admit that we're very challenged with customer service. And we've been able to figure out all these things as to why, finding the people to develop, the length of time it takes to develop them. All sorts of things we've discovered. And I read the riot act to my team, starting with myself recently. I said, we don't have to solve that problem today. The problem that we have to solve is, what are we not doing that is creating those problems in the first instance? Let's work on us first. Those who are in the leadership, in the decision-making places in this business. Let's work on us first. And when we do that, when we begin to, as a team, trust what each person brings to the table, then we can cause those who are part of the expanded team to understand the standards we expect. They can see consistency in ourselves. And now they have an understanding that for us to get to where we want to go, it requires this level of performance. But it starts, for us, in our company, certainly starts internally.
So growth exposes your weaknesses. Like, everybody wants to grow, but just be prepared to be exposed.
Absolutely.
But the management of that, of all aspects of that, starts from an internal perspective.
That's absolutely right.
That's deep. That's deep.
That's
So
absolutely right.
So you're in the petroleum industry, and just like any other industry, you have competitors and businesses, other businesses that are trying to gain a larger percentage of of the market, that you guys are trying to maintain. How do you look at your competitors, and how do you handle competitors in your market?
You ready for this?
I am.
Sure.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, from a mindset perspective, I have no competitors.
There you
The only competitor that I have is myself. From a visionary perspective, the day I began to figure out or try to figure out what somebody who is equally an entrepreneur, a risk taker, somebody who has proven themselves to be able to manage resources to produce a profit, the day I start to focus on them from a competitive perspective is the day I lose sight of myself.
Who you are. Yep.
Now, I can learn from them, and I can put myself in a position to learn as well, but it's not competition. I have no competitors. And I explain this to my team especially, because they're my first responsibility. I explain it to them this way. We are not in the petroleum business. We sell petroleum products, and we have to sell them profitably, but that's not the business that we're in. Our business is in the development of people, and petroleum is the platform that we use to develop people. So that is our unique perspective. Somebody who's a different brand may be in the business of maximizing return on investment. So they won't have the focus that we do. They won't solve problems in their business the way we do. So this is why I have no competition. And really, the fulfilling the vision in its various phases and seasons is where I need to focus my attention.
And bettering yourself and the business through each phase.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the core principles that has helped you sustain the business to this point?
I think we have a set of core values that I like to espouse from time to time, and those values. By the way, I'm here with you at a very important time in my company as well, because we just retooling, refining everything that we've done, and it's because January coming we'll be 25 years in, and we're setting the foundation for the next 25 years. And so the first core value, as I said it to my team, these are not golden rules. Core values for us as a company, these are the things that we must live, we must be, we must become, we must show, we must demonstrate, we must teach. This must be culture for us. You know what our first core value is? Open communication. Because we talked about this earlier. We get nowhere if we're not in common union with each other.
Yep.
So it's our first core value. Our core values spell out this, it's an acronym, ownership, open communication, wholeness, nimbleness, excellence, OWNER, respect for relationships, and it goes on. And you would note, if I had time to share all of them with you, you would note that they all focus around people and the development of the human being.
And is it, I guess, the reason the reason the acronym spells ownership is because you want everyone to take ownership of their perspective?
That's right. We are on a mission where rather than just a name badge with somebody's name, it's going to have the team member's name and the acronym owner under it.
Gotcha.
And it's a play on our core values. We want customers to say, you're the owner. And we want our team members to be able to say, I absolutely own every gift and talent that I bring to the table. I'm letting you into some secrets.
No, I got you.
This is the passion that's driving us and preparing us for the next 25 years.
And that's how you shift mindset, right?
And that's exactly how we shift mindsets. Can I share a quick story?
No, absolutely.
There's a young lady. She's a mother of 3 children, and she joined us at our most recent location about a year and a half ago, and she is very challenged in being able to manage her children and the environment that she came from. And she simply she wanted to work at a gas station where she could get it done. We look for potential. We saw the potential in this young lady, and if I have my way, if she stays on and she allows me to guide her, we will make sure that what she brought to the table, an incredible ability to clean, to see date behind the date and to clean. And to leave that space that she just interacted with as though it is the king's palace. I said to her, I'm going to cause you to own your own business. She is smart but not educated. She is single, made some dumb decisions in her life that she would admit to. But because we pin our team members owner, we don't look at just their skill or where they come from. We go at what's inside of them, and we seek to bring that out. Can you imagine what it did for her? When she said she sat in she calls me the boss office. By the way, any of you listening, I am not the boss. I am the chief cook and bottled water. She sat in my office, and she said to me in tears, nobody ever believed in me before. Now, we've had to fire her, but she's still in communication with us. And by the way, she was fired because of time and attendance, because of being able to stick with her children. And I said to her, okay, what you need is something where you can manage your time a little differently. Can you give me this time, that time, and the next time? And can we develop a business model around that for you? And what it will help us to do is it'll help us to do the deep cleaning on a regular basis of our facilities, and it'll cause you to have the flexibility to take care of yourself. Can you imagine what it did to her thinking and her mindset? That somebody who she doesn't know, for no reason, didn't want anything from her, said to her, you can be an owner. Here's how we can accomplish it. She calls me to this day her daddy.
Wow.
In a year and a half.
And not just anybody, right? Her boss, that someone that she was employed with.
Absolutely.
And had to let her go, but didn't just let her go. Just be like, okay, let's try and make this work for you. Man, that's deep. That's deep. So you guys are truly in the people business.
No, that's our mantra. It's our passion. And we pay a price for it. Don't get me wrong. We pay a price for it. I tell people all the time, when I first started, I was the handsomest thing the Lord ever made on the earth. I had all my hair; it was black, and there was no gray. Can I tell you, to see this young lady, and there are many stories like that drives our business. To see this young lady say out loud for the first time in her life that somebody believes in her, it gets no better.
No, that's key. That's key. And I steal nuggets from you every time we get some time to spend together. And I've stole that perspective of, putting people first and not just looking at them as employees, but as team members. I think that's important. All right. So, in business, we love to be successful. We love to, reach our goals. But how do you handle failure when you don't reach the mark and it's not as successful as you planned it out to be? How do you handle failure?
There are two imposters in life: success and failure, because both are temporary. How do you handle failure? By the way you think about it. You're not going to get everything right. To this day, 25 years later, plus 16 working with somebody else, we still mess up big time. We still have to solve the problems that are forced on us, the ones that we create because we don't pay attention to things, deal with it in a timely manner. But the question is, when you see something that didn't work out, or you failed at it when you gave it your full effort, what do you learn from it? How do you say to yourself, boy, this one cost me, but that cost is not sunk cost, it's an invested cost. In other words, how am I going to take the lessons learned and do something differently moving forward?
Is this something that you always had, or did you have to develop this mindset?
No, you have to develop it. I mean, for me, it was developed. I think, again, I must give my dad, he's alive today, 83 years old, and he's had some huge challenges in his life. And I watched this man face those challenges, face on, lose weight, lost everything, and embrace life nonetheless, right? What was your question? Sorry, I got lost.
How did you develop that mindset of how to your perspective on failure?
Right. So for me, I think the mindset was developed over time. I think it came through mentorship. I think it came through being a student of how things work, why they don't work, and how to improve it. I consider myself a student of um, to learn not just the obvious lesson, but all of the pieces in between. I put it this way when I try to explain it to my team, especially, or even to my sons. Never in life accept information without a context. There's a context for everything, and quite often, um, because we don't listen to understand, we listen to respond. That's a quote I use in a marriage class that I teach. We don't listen to understand, we listen to respond. We run on information that has no context. And when we make decisions based on information out of context, then we have an out of context response. So even when I look at failure, when I think about when did I learn this, how to deal with failure, it's a mindset that has been developed over time because I've been intentional about being a student to learn, right? And mentorship is one of those places. There are men who you and I know, you know perhaps more than I do, who they were great mentors. They lived in the front of us, shared what they knew, were passionate about helping people, and said, hey, things like this, don't live life except by principle. You don't live life on anything other than principle. So my mindset has been washed with that kind of contribution to my life. And I think it's been a learned process over time.
So I think you segued into this next question, and you might have even touched on it a bit just now. But how important is mentorship? You know, we as entrepreneurs, like we set out on these journeys of wanting to own our own business and do our own thing, set our own hours. But there's we can't do it alone, right? I know this, but from your perspective, how important is mentorship?
Allow me to start this way. I think, unfortunately, in today's environment, words get so overused that we lose the essence of what it's been, of what it's meant. So mentorship is very topical. We hear it all the time. Great leaders give examples of how they were mentored, etc. And so it sounds as though it's fashionable. But let me tell you how important mentorship is. Mentorship is fathering. Now, there are many who have not had the privilege of having a daddy in their life, but somebody was around that was able to father them. Mentoring is reading somebody's story, but not going after the result that person achieved, but empathizing with the journey that they went on. That's mentoring. Mentoring is being able to watch somebody who has integrity and say, you know what? This teacher who has integrity, they are inspiring me to be a person of integrity. So mentorship is absolutely critical. And today, where, in my opinion, our families are not ideal, at least the way I believe God intended it, and in an environment where we are so selfish, we are so self-driven, mentorship are those men and women who will stand up for somebody else to see and view and experience their journey in a transparent way, because the person who is observing has the ability to say, you know what? This person has helped me to make a decision that's going to cause me to be all that I was born to be.
No, I truly believe that, because, as a mentor of mine, we've discussed, a lot of topics, personal life, professional life, ideas that I have, should I invest in this? Should I not invest in this? What do you think about this person? And I really appreciate the insight that you've brought into perspective for me in making these decisions. And one thing I like, and as you consider whether you want to identify a mentor for yourself, like you never want a mentor that makes the decisions for you, right? Like my dad, I remember, like any question I asked him for an answer, he always flipped the question on me for me to answer it for myself. Yeah. And I didn't realize what he was doing until I was much older. Yeah. But I realized that helped me in problem solving, because I start to just ask myself, okay, well, how can I figure this out? And that's something that you've always done as well. Like you would give advice, but you would never give instructions or like, go and do this, go and do that. And I appreciate that. Appreciate that about you.
I'll just say my mantra. Now that you, remind me, my mantra is, I will never tell another human being what to do. My goal is to hopefully inspire them to think about what needs being done. Because if I tell you what to do, I then become responsible for what the result is.
Yep.
If I tell you how to think about what you're trying to achieve, you now have to take responsibility for it. And by the way, when we choose our mates, our wives, and our husbands, be careful of somebody who's telling you marry that one. They love you, don't get me wrong. What you want to listen for is, well, have you thought about what marrying that person means? And not just now, but in the future. You talk about your dad. Your dad was one of the greatest mentors, I believe, that graced the earth because he made statements like this. Decisions are easy if you first think about the consequences.
Yep.
When I heard that for the first time, it shocked my world. Now that's difficult when you're having a piece of cake and you're wondering about your waistline, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly, my dad, I've said this a number of times on the pod, like he's taught me how to make decisions, right? Because when you have a decision to make, like you don't just think of, at least he taught me not to think of like the now, right? The immediate effect of those decisions. Like how is this decision going to affect you, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And that stems from me always telling him, like, you take so long to make decisions, right? Like these the decisions that I'm looking at are simple decisions. Like you taking a week and 2 weeks just to make this, what I call a simple decision. But, I learned that, he wasn't just thinking of the next 2 weeks. He was thinking of, the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's important as not only as an individual, but as an entrepreneur that has, a lot of persons that depend on you for their livelihood.
Yeah. And I would argue part of his mentoring of me, close up or at a distance, what I walked away, in addition to what you said, is that there's always a context for the things that you know. If you don't get the context with it, you rush into making a decision hastily because it appears to be something that you can decide on quickly. Oh, how I've paid the price.
Oh, I have paid the price too, Mr. Boss. Trust me. So I take my time in these decisions now, for sure. I don't allow anyone to rush me into decisions.
Hey, y'all record that. You hear what Charles said?
So, we're winding down, and I think this has been some great insight, not only from your personal perspective, but from a general perspective of like entrepreneurs and the mindset that entrepreneurs should have. But what I want to tackle now is the common misconceptions of entrepreneurship, right? And I'll give you one that I hear people say a lot, right? So as an entrepreneur, like as someone that works for someone else, like they always say, man, I want go and own my own business so I can make my own hours, right? I could make my time in entrepreneurship, right? So they go from working a 9 to 5 to being able to dictate the amount of hours that they make, not knowing that as an entrepreneur, like your days ain't 8-hour days no more, right? You have, like Mr. Moore say, his wife allows him to work 16-hour days, right? So you work in double shifts. You know what I mean? So this conception that as an entrepreneur, I could, make my own hours, but if you want to be successful, it takes more time, right? As an entrepreneur to build and sustain your business. So what are some of the misconceptions of entrepreneurship that you have seen, that you've learned, and that you want to share?
Yeah. I think just piggybacking on what you said, one piece of advice that I'd like to offer is this. As an entrepreneur, you need to spend more time working on your business than working in your business. And more time doesn't mean quantity of time. It means where you have intentionally set aside some part of your day or your week or your month to figure out the big strategy of your company. Now, it's difficult if you're fixing the vehicle, going and getting the parts, making the bank deposits, dealing with the customer issues, going and picking up the car that broke down on the side of the road, managing the employee who you left to change the fuel pump and you put it in the reverse way. You will have 48-hour days, right? And so, as an entrepreneur, you must get rid of this notion that, man, I could do this myself. Man, I can wake and I can make this happen. Man, I used to see my boss do this, but he didn't know what he's doing, so now I'm going to do this for myself. Because you think that a skill will allow you to achieve and to make and to be profitable in the business. So I always advise those who are aspiring to be business owners or they have an idea, they want to bring it to market. Prepare to spend time working on your business rather than in your business. When you're working in your business, and particularly as you're building your business, please stop telling yourself you're the boss.
Everybody want a title, eh?
I encourage you not to do that.
Yeah.
I encourage you to see yourself as the most important person to serve in that business.
Absolutely.
To empower those who you will need to help you. I don't mind if you are somebody who you sit to your computer and you type all day and you think it's only you. You're going to need somebody to turn on the computer and fix the computer because it will break down, right? Stop telling yourself that you're the boss. You're the person who has to drive the vision that you had to solve the problem that gave you the opportunity that you call a business. And so this is why you have to prioritize time working on your business. And while you're working in the business, when you get started, yes, you may have to do a number of things. But while you're doing that, figure out, okay, I need to now get somebody to do this. I know how to hold them accountable to get it done because that's now going to free me to spend more time working on the business, not laying in bed till 10 o'clock and then getting up.
Got you. Well, so my next question was going to be to offer some advice for some entrepreneurs, but I think that was, those were advice in and of itself. And I think those are key. So it brings us to the final question, and this is a question that I have asked all the guests on the pod. How do you define success?
It's a big question. And I'm conscious of the audience. There may be some making a decision to take the next step, to take the risk, because entrepreneurship and business is risk-driven. There may be somebody who is, like I was, comfortable or growing in something they're doing, but there's something nudging on the inside of them that they need to take a leap of faith and step out and to get it done. Let me tell you, if I can be very transparent, what success is. Success is doing what in your heart you know is the thing that drove you to get started or to that you are purposed to do while you are managing resources for profit. Am I making sense? Here, can I say it this way? You cannot have success compared to somebody else or to something else. You have to have success based on an internal thermostat, an internal standard, an internal objective or goal. It is not outside of you that you measure success. It's inside of you. And I would argue that be careful of this word success because the elbow grease and the time invested to get to a point where you can say, I achieved this, the minute you start to say I, be very careful. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging where you are and calling that success. But remember, it's temporary.
So I know they said that was the last question, but what you said just now just sparked another question. How do you celebrate success? Or do you celebrate success?
I celebrate success by the example I gave earlier. The young lady who came to me. And so success for me is fulfillment. All of that long talk is just really fulfillment. There's no adrenaline or rush or number that tells me that I'm successful. For Ethan, I always feel fulfilled when a team member or somebody I interacted with says to me, Mr. Moss, thank you for causing me to XYZ. That is indescribable. There's no such word, but undescribable. That is a point where whenever that happens, I feel like I've done what the Lord has put me on the earth to do. Is having resources important? Yes. Managing those resources more important? Absolutely. Success for Ethan is moments of fulfillment. Young man who I'd not seen for a while heard me on another podcast. He picked up the phone. He said, Mr. Moss, I don't know if you remember me. I'm such and such and such. I need to come talk to you. I thought he was coming with a business idea or something. And he came and he sat in my office and he says, I need help. I need somebody who I could talk to who will make sense to me. And I remembered when I interacted with you before, I felt, you trust me to come and help? What is that all about?
Yeah.
When we were finished talking, I said, thank you, Lord, that you trust me to be in this position, available for this young man to be able to talk to him. That to me was success.
So I could push a little harder though, because I understand that, what success is, and the way you celebrate isn't, for self. You celebrate the fact that you're able to help and encourage and empower others. But just being a little selfish, right? Is there a point where you say, you know what, this is such a great achievement, I'm going to, splurge on a trip with my wife, or, splurge on this item that to buy for myself that I've been looking at for some time, just as a celebratory piece, to commemorate this achievement. Like, is that something that you do have done, or
you're pushing against a wall, right? Because my greatest celebratory time of achievement is shopping in Walmart when I say,
you sound like my dad, bro. Jesus.
I'm so sick. I mean, I don't know if because I'm just at this stage in my life.
Got
right?
you.
I watch my sons, right? They're 22 and 19, and it has to be brand this and that.
You ain't care.
And I remember my days, right? I cannot lie to the audience. I remember my days, and it had to be a certain look. And,
okay, so that used to be.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
all right. I guess making sure it was there before. But you're a little older now.
Yeah, I must tell you, I appreciate the pushing, but I cannot afford to allow myself, and maybe it's a protection mechanism, by the way, to cause things to be the measure of success in my life, or how I measure or celebrate success. Because I've seen, not just in my own life, but I've seen enough examples to know that when that happens, you begin to get in a space of I, and you miss, in my humble opinion, that it takes all that it took and all the people that it took for you to be at any one point in your life. Every customer who has had to come to the store to spend money, or every team member who has to work, or every person who led a seminar that I happened to be a part of, and I took some notes on them and borrowed their notes. All of that is what allows me to be trusted with the resources that have come through my fingers. Do I pause and say, boy, in 5 years we did this amount of sales. Boy, we've had this amount of locations that we've added. We started off with 18 team members. Today I have just under 200 team members that we're responsible for. Do you have these points that you can look at to see progress or to see movement? Absolutely. Do they bring a sense of achievement? Absolutely. But when you talk about the deep principle of success, when you talk about the deeper principle of fulfillment, you cannot measure those things by the things that you can tangibly point to. I think success for me is really the intangibles. It really is. I have no like I said, you're pushing against a wall if you're looking for an answer from me.
I got you.
That one, but the other.
Success is fulfillment. I completely agree with that. Just maybe a generational difference with how success is celebrated. Because my dad, I'm trying to think of like if my dad ever like what I would term celebrated, any achievement. I think the most my dad would do, dinner was achievement and was a celebration for him, like going out and having a meal or carrying the family out for a meal or something like that. I think that would be probably the most celebrated time or experience that I could remember my dad doing.
Yeah. Pray for my sons, because help them out a little bit, because
Like right there with them though.
They're going through this thing. Daddy, really? Come on, man.
Hey, I remember them days. But now, Mr. Moss, I want to thank you for first of all agreeing to be on the pod, and then just for sharing, some of your insight on entrepreneurship. I hold you as someone who in business is like truly successful and someone that I look up to. And people, may look at you and not notice or not see the success or what the world may define as success. But it's good to know that, even though you're so successful, like you still carry yourself as like a, for lack of a better term, a regular person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it just shows your humility. And like you say, your dedication to fulfillment, right? It's not about it's not about the tangibles, but more so about the intangibles. And I think that is greatly appreciated. So, for persons who live in the Bahamas, if you want to help Mr. Moss celebrate his businesses, you could patronize him at his. You mind if I call his Rubus gas stations. He is the owner of the. You call them service stations, right? Well, you don't call them service stations.
We call them training and development
centers, because his business is a people-oriented business. But Rubus gas station here in the Bahamas is the business that Mr. Morris, the name of the business or the company that Mr. Morris is over. So if you want to patronize, don't forget all the others. let's go to Rubus and let's give Rubus our gas money.
I appreciate the plug. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you, Mr. Morris. Appreciate you being on and sharing this insight, man.
Can I just say,
Sure.
and I'm so proud of you, Tara, and I've had the privilege of watching your progression and to see the podcast and can I say just coming into your own. I think it's just absolutely fantastic, and I bless you and all those who you continue to impact through this work and all of the things that many won't know that you're doing. I don't know half for sure. So I leave your audience with this: success does come at a price. Growth comes at a price. Achievement comes with a price. And the question is, are you just prepared to pay the price? Because if you're not prepared to pay the price, don't destroy yourself and the other people around you. You have to be prepared to pay the price. And can I tell you that in paying the price, see it as an investment. If you see it as an investment, expect a return, because that will require you to manage. It will require you to stay on vision. It will require you to make sure those who were sent into your life to help you to achieve, you help them to achieve, and they will help you to achieve. Success is never the thing that is achieved. Success, in my humble view, is the fulfillment that you get when you go after paying the price.
Mr. Moss, milestones usually is the last word. That's the milestone for today. I can leave that right there.
Wow.
I think that's a great word. That's a great point to end on. A great principle to end on. So I won't even try to top that. Thank you very much, Mr. Moss.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Again, Mr. Moss, thank you for joining us and sharing your experiences and your insights on entrepreneurship. But as always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right, so until next time, you guys stay blessed.